Hey guys, how's it going? Ben here again with the Virus Podcast, and welcome back for episode 78. For those of you who are new here, this is not a coronavirus podcast. This is not a COVID-19 podcast. Instead, this is one where I have contagious combos and viral viewpoints and basically talk a lot about self-improvement. So just a heads up, if you think self-improvement is a waste of time, chances are you're probably wasting time. So if it does interest you, then stick around. I'm going to talk a lot about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about business, a little bit about personal development, and I'm going to do a review here, continue my review on the 10X Growth Conference that I attended this year, back in March. And we'll talk a little bit about Drew Brees and how his interview went, and get into the viral viewpoint after that. So stick around. You can find the live streams for this podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and then posted content on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Anchor. And so you can follow me, like, share, subscribe, give me a little bit of love, help me keep that momentum rolling for this channel and for this purpose and for this movement that I've kind of started. Appreciate the support too, by the way. We're going to talk a little bit about a few things. I think it'd be good for me to start plugging my newer business. For those of you who don't know, I run a home improvement business, but more recently I got involved with being a partner with Grant Cardone as a licensee. And that's something that I want to more and more get involved in, because ultimately I want that business to generate more business than the home improvement company and eventually be my main thing. Whereas right now the home improvement thing is my main thing. I look to grow that, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to kind of start spreading the message, kind of plugging that a little bit. And this is one of my channels that I have created an audience in, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to do that on this one. In case you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, basically I am a Grant Cardone licensee, which means I'm certified to give people and businesses access to this content that's super helpful in basically self-improvement and growth and in business revenue. So what I do basically is help businesses and individuals increase their sales revenue, or it could be personal coaching. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. Price levels going up to $25,000 down to $100. So there's a lot of different products in the inventory. I'll usually start out by going over, understanding your business or your situation, figuring out kind of where those areas of improvement can be worked on. And, we're going to look at, when it comes to business, we're probably going to be looking at marketing, networking, follow-up, cold calls, prospecting, promoting, all these things that have massively helped me increase my revenue in my business and millions of others as well. Plus, there's a lot of personal coaching products in there as well that are key to basically starting. Like if someone doesn't have a business, then this is a great place to start for someone who just wants to, do more, win, and just be better. You know what I mean? So what better person to actually start following and learning from than Grant Cardone, like I did, and like hundreds of thousands of other people have done. So anyways, that's the business. You can follow me if you're interested in any of that. benjaminjohn.net is the landing page, and go ahead and submit your information, and I'll reach out to you and we'll continue a conversation from there. So let's get into the contagious combo for today. Oh, and by the way, you guys notice I got a little mic stand here now. Yeah, I don't know. The reason for that is because I noticed there was a lot of pounding, no matter how careful I was at the desk here, just having the mic sitting on the desk, it seems like it was always picking up every little sound. So I don't even know if this is much better until I finish this podcast and I go back and review it. So fingers crossed. Let's see if that helps. So we'll find out, I guess. But it seems either way, it's cool, right? It's a little more professional. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm posing. But anyways, yeah, it feels a little more official with a mic in my face like this. It feels like someone's kind of sticking a mic right in my face. But yeah, hopefully this is better. I'm just looking for ways to kind of be a little more professional. Obviously, this new viewpoint with the camera, with the webcam, is a little bit different too. Just because, like I said, I'm kind of getting lazy with, I do a lot of Zoom calls, and so I'm kind of getting tired of switching the camera back and forth. But so I'm just mixing it up. I didn't retire that angle. And I'm kind of working on getting a backdrop for that side as well, because I'm not really big on digital backdrops because of all the cutting and the bleeding between the image and the backdrop. It's kind of distracting for me personally. So that doesn't really interest me. So just working on those things like that and getting better and better. Let's put it that way. All right. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about. So in the contagious combo, the first thing I want to talk about is investing. And some of these topics I've been talking about recently on my Cardone Licensee Instagram page and the YouTube channel. I've been doing some frequent YouTube posts and videos on there talking a lot about these things. And so if you follow me on any one of those pages, you might hear some of this. It might sound redundant, and it should be redundant. I mean, if it's definitely some impactful material. It's definitely some good content, and just the thing people need sometimes to make a change, make a big change, and just start kind of moving the ball downfield towards being a better person and just gaining skills and creating stuff. I mean, it just works for a lot of different things. So anyways, let me get this restream thing figured out here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, investing in yourself. Let's talk about that a little bit here. Why should a person invest in themselves? It sounds good, right? When you hear that, it's like, oh yeah, everybody should invest in themselves. But how many people are actually doing it is the big question. There's a lot of people kind of just treading water, droning through life, just kind of taking things as they come, just fly by night, just kind of going with the flow. It's like it's just a really stagnant mentality in life to have. And so in order for any of that to change, you have to invest in yourself. You got to invest time, you got to invest money, you got to invest really anything that's going to help you grow. If you don't challenge yourself, there's just not going to be any change. It's got to be a lot of effort put into it. It's got to be something preferably done daily. Otherwise, you're just not going to hold yourself accountable. It's going to be kind of like treated like the New Year's resolution thing, where it's like, oh, I got a New Year's resolution, and for the year, and then I'll think about it for the month of January, and I'll forget about it, and then until the whole year goes by, and then New Year's resolution comes back into just December, and you're like, oh, okay, here it is again. And most times people probably never even put any thought into the previous goal that they had, whether they accomplished it or not. They're just like, oh, let's just make another goal. So yeah, goal setting is great, but accomplishing those goals is even better. And part of investing is part of that. Investing should come with a goal, should come with a target. And I'll tell you why it's super important to invest in yourself. For two different people. So for the business, if you're in a business or you run a company, or even if you're part of a company that's involved in sales, you got to start by investing in yourself, investing in the knowledge, because it's going to help with your confidence level. If you don't have any confidence, it's going to come across very clear to the prospect or the consumer or the buyer or the person that you're talking to. It's going to come across very bad for you. It's a deal breaker. It's not going to work well. People want to work with people who are confident, and if you come across as not being confident, then it's just not going to go in your favor. And when I say people want to work with someone who's confident, that doesn't mean fake your confidence. That means get confident in what it is you do. So learn more, train on it. You got to invest, and sometimes it's going to include or involve investing money or time, in most cases both. And so I think I might have talked about this recently, about how I invested in my future, in my skills and things that I want to get better at. And, I've talked to a few different people about this. I think it's absolutely crazy that I spent $40K on my training and things that I want to get better at. And I know people who have spent $1 million on their training and their investment, and whatever it is they're trying to get involved in that makes them better. So it's not that crazy to me to think anymore that in order for me to expect somebody to invest in me, I'm going to need to invest myself. So think about that. That's really that's one thing that has really got me to rethink the investment talk, and the investment topic. If you cannot invest anything in yourself, whether it's time or money or both, how can you expect somebody to invest in you? Even if it's just an idea, take time and money out of the picture, take the business out of the picture. Let's just say you're average Joe working a job, and you're put in a position where let's just say you have an idea, right? And you're trying to convey this idea to somebody. You're trying to convince them that what you're trying to explain to them is something, if you're trying to convince them to do something and you have not invested in yourself, and it's very clear to that person you haven't invested anything in yourself on this very idea, it's not going to work well for you, because they're going to see that you're not invested, you're not committed to anything. They're like, well, why should I believe you, or why should I do this thing with you, or why should I be on board with this idea that you have, when it just seems like you're just winging it right now. You had a good idea, but you haven't put any time or money into it, or you really thought it through very well. So it's very key for anybody. It can work for, let's use another scenario. Let's say like relationship wise. Let's say you're trying to convince somebody to, you've been working really hard to go out with somebody, let's say. And they've turned you down a few times, and you're trying to convince them that it's a good thing for that person to spend time with you. Or for you guys to at least entertain the idea that you can be a couple. If how much more leverage do you think you would have, or how more believable would you come across if you explain to that person and display to that person that you've invested in yourself, just being a good person, whatever that may be. You know what I mean? Like, you're good at communicating, you're good at respect, you're good at accountability, you're good at planning, you're good at all these things that are kind of valued in a perfect relationship, if you will. How much more, of course, this is if the other party values these things as well. But this is just me using an example other than business, because I think a lot of people kind of get the assumption that everything I'm talking about only applies to business, and it's simply not true. Like I said, a lot of these things and strategies that I've learned, I've applied to my life, and they've changed my life and also my business. So it's crazy. I've just dabbled with that in the past, where I was like, wow, this worked for my business, I'm going to try making it work for my life, and it totally works in every aspect. And that's why I'm kind of using an example like this. But trust me, if you are using that example where you're trying to convince somebody to, spend time with you, go out on a date with you, if you let them know that you've invested a lot of time in yourself and being a good person and being a great spouse to be with, that's going to come across a lot more attractive than you just saying, believe me, trust me. Although, the conviction in which you come across with that message is pretty powerful too, but it's going to come across a little more powerful if you actually invested time, because when you invest time, you can kind of regurgitate some of that information and things you have learned and things you have focused on. And it's retained knowledge that you have at the click of the snap of a finger. It's just right there on tap in your brain, and it's there for you to access anytime you need to. And so anyways, confidence is the key, and the result of investing in yourself. And it just makes sense, because if you have the confidence and you're trying to display, if you're trying to convince somebody of anything, anything at all, business, personal, you need to have that investment in yourself so that it in turn builds that confidence level, and you're able to actually articulate to somebody like, hey, I've actually done this, X, Y, Z, and that's why I'm so confident that this is the right thing for you, whatever that thing may be. So yeah, I'm very passionate about investing now when it comes to just training, skills, knowledge, particularly. Obviously investing in other things is great too, real estate, businesses, things like that. It's great. Just investing in yourself in any aspect is going to be super beneficial for you. So do it. A lot of people don't realize how necessary that is to expand, put yourself out there. And like I said, it just does wonders for your confidence because you've done the work. You put in the reps. You're committed. That's the big word. It really shows your level of commitment when you've invested time or money into something. And so that's something that you want to display to somebody like, hey, I've invested a lot of time and I've invested a lot of money into this. I may not know everything about it, but one thing I'm doing is constantly learning, and I'm willing to share what I've learned, and the things I have learned I've implemented and they worked. So that stuff comes across strong, because it's true if you've actually done the work. So yeah, invest in yourself. Look for ways to invest in yourself. Don't just, if you are that person that I spoke of being average Joe, and you're working, you're part of that 76% of America who's working paycheck to paycheck, take a look at your life and think about like, what's something you can invest in? First of all, think about what you want your purpose to be. What do you want your, I'm going to talk a little bit about this later. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to get better at? What do you want for your future? And sit there, write it down too, by the way. I talked about this before, that the brain remembers things 60,000 more times than just saying it. So you got to write it down. You got to get a visual of it. It's going to help you visualize things. Just seeing it on paper is going to help. Writing it out, going through the motions of writing it out is just going to kind of solidify it a little bit more in your head. But think about write down these things. What do you want to do? What do you want to be better at? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself still living paycheck to paycheck? Hopefully that's, not the case. And if you don't see yourself living paycheck to paycheck in the next 5 years, what are you doing right now to change that outcome? Because if you're just saying it, you're just saying, yeah, I don't think I don't see myself living paycheck to paycheck in 5 years from now. If you're not going to do anything about it, then guess what? Nothing's going to change, and you're going to be living paycheck to paycheck. Unless something falls in your lap, where that usually doesn't happen, you're going to be in the same situation, if not worse, 5 years from now. Most times it's going to be worse. If you have not challenged yourself, if you haven't went through adversity to become better on the other side, there's just not going to be any change there, period. So think of what those things are, those things that you want to invest in, and think about how you can invest in it. It might take some money. It might take just time. It might just take time. Time is very valuable though. So, the older you get in life and the busier you get in life, time is even more valuable, and you realize that as you get older. So look for ways to invest your time, invest some money, and get the best return on investment that you can get, which is receiving knowledge, receiving confidence, all those things I just talked about a minute ago. And start doing it. All right, write it down. Wait until the end of the year to write your goals down. Do it right now. There's nothing stopping you from taking a piece of paper and writing your goals down, and then looking at it the next day, looking at it tonight. It's one of the easiest things you can do, and one of the most beneficial things you can do to keep your targets and goals at the forefront of your mind. Right. So, yeah, hopefully people understand what I'm talking about and how passionate I am about that, because that's why I spent so much time on just the investment talk, because I have invested in myself. I've invested a lot of time, and I've invested a lot of money, and it's been it's paid off. It's been the best thing I've ever done for myself when it comes to growth, when it comes to putting myself out there to be better and to move closer to my target. All right. Let's talk a little bit about, or a lot maybe, because I actually love this topic right here. I've talked about it a couple times on a few different episodes, and it's something that shouldn't be regularly talked about. It's that important to me. It's very relevant in my life, for me, for my team, for my company, for the Grant Cardone licensee team, and that is accountability. Accountability, right? It's a nice fancy word. People like to say it. Accountability. Feels good just to say accountability, right? If it feels good to say accountability, imagine how much better it feels to actually be accountable. That's the separator right there. A lot of people, they're just not accountable, and you'll see it when usually the most obvious indicator someone has no level of accountability is when they blame things. They blame things for they blame things on people. They blame things on just natural things that happen, the weather, natural disasters, the economy. They look for things to blame, and so that's one of the biggest indicators that someone has no accountability. And it's very dangerous. It's a very bad mindset to have, because as soon as it's very essential for growth, by the way. For me, I talked about a lot of the skills that I've learned. Accountability is way up there, higher up on the list. Accountability, along with investing. Accountability is liberating. It provides a sense of freedom. It gives you a way to reset things, and I'll tell you what I mean by that here in a little bit. But when I think of things, so I'm going to tell you guys something here, the way it was told to me. Things do not happen to you. All right? Things do not happen to you. Or excuse me. Yeah, things don't happen to you. There we go. They happen because of you. All right? Think about that. Things do not happen to you. There's nothing that's happening to you. Things happen because of you. And I know this is really hard for people. This is a reach and a stretch for some people. They're like, no, and they're already, I know that whoever is hearing this right now, whether it's now or later, they're thinking there's some people that are thinking in their head, well, that's not true. What if there was an earthquake? That happened to me, right? You're missing the point. What I'm saying is, you should have, like I've always said before in previous podcasts, you should have a disgusting amount of accountability. There's huge growth in that. It does something for you. It does, I don't know, it does this thing where it gives you a sense of control. It really does. Even when something that has kind of happened out of your control, you take accountability for, now the control's back in your court. Now you have control of that again. Now that you've taken ownership of whatever has happened, now it's up to you. And that's what I meant by resetting. It kind of gives you a reset. Now, okay, this happened. All right. Let's just say an earthquake happened. Yeah. Let's say, okay, well, if it was me and I was looking to be accountable in that situation, well, the reason it happened because of me is because I was living out there. You know what I mean? Like I knew the risk I was taking. I knew there was earthquakes. I know that in life something can happen, right? And so I could have prepared for all these things. I could have done things, you know what I mean? Like, some things happen out of your control, but the whole point of accountability is to take control. And so if you just use that scenario as an example, if you just say, oh, okay, well, I was in an earthquake, and then you just leave it at that, it's just a bad habit to get into, because now I can guarantee you that same person that kind of says, well, it was because of an earthquake that I lost my home, it was because of an earthquake that I lost my job, is because, I'm in this situation, let's just say a few years pass by and that person still really hasn't done anything with their life, and they had a devastating thing happen to them, right? The earthquake took their home, took their, let's say they lost a family member, it was real devastating for them. The fact of the matter is, they can take control at any time. You know what I mean? And so them continuing the blame, like, oh, well, a couple years ago I was in an earthquake and that's why I'm in the situation I'm in. I had a good job, but the earthquake destroyed that building and the business went out. You just look for more excuses and you just look for ways, when in reality, the sooner you can take that control and pivot and kind of choose your destiny and which path you want to go down, the better it's going to be. And there's something that comes with that. When you have accountability, the quicker you can do it, the better. And the more you can look for ways to hold yourself accountable, the faster you're going to grow. There's just the space that you're in when you start blaming things, or you're down because you think things happen to you. You don't want to make any moves. You're scared to do something because of something might happen to you again. So that's what I mean. Just take accountability. I've every now and then I'll be with somebody and I see that, you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to use as an example right now, but someone, something will happen to them and they immediately say, oh yeah, well this happened, and that happened, I'm like, well, you put yourself in that situation. Whether it was yesterday, whether it was last month, whether it was last year, whether it was 5 years ago, whether it was 10 years ago, whether it was because of the choices you made as a kid, whatever, you are in the position you are in right now because of the decisions that you did and did not make in the past, right? However many days ago that was, however many years ago that was. It's just a fact, you know what I mean? And that's powerful. It's a very powerful thing to understand and realize that once that the reason you're in this position that you're in, let's use myself as an example. The reason why I'm learning these skills, right? The sales skills, the people skills, the communication, the networking, the promoting, the advertising and marketing, all these things that I've learned in the last 3-4 years, more importantly, it's probably been in the last 6 years, but where I really started learning how to properly do stuff would be in the last 3 years. The reason, I'm learning them now at a later age because I made the decision at an early age to not do anything. When I look back at me being a teenager, I was making poor choices. I was getting in trouble. I was smoking weed. I was doing things that were not benefiting my future, were not getting me to being an exceptional individual. I had poor guidance, and that's a blame right there. Me saying, "Oh, I had no guidance. I had no role models." Although that's true, I didn't spend the time looking for a role model. So that was my decision to not, I guess, just stay in that space. There's a lot of factors. I was uncomfortable, so I didn't learn how to be uncomfortable. Those decisions I'm taking accountability for. It's tough. It's super tough to do that, to sit there and take accountability for something that seems like it might not even remotely be your fault. But it's something that I'm telling you, when you start doing that, it just does this huge thing for your confidence too. I've gotten compliments from people that when I've told them, like, I've had mistakes on jobs, I've had setbacks on jobs in my company, and when I let people know, like, hey, this is what happened, it was completely my fault, it was an unexpected thing, but I'm gonna hold myself accountable. You get a lot of positive feedback from that. I've had people literally tell me, like, that's big of you to take accountability for that. There's, it says a lot about you as a person and as a business owner. And so just hearing that kind of helps with the confidence. It makes you feel good about yourself. You're like, yeah, I am taking accountability for that. Now, what are we going to do to fix this? Now, how are we going to solve this problem? You know what I mean? That's that reset point. You're like, okay, this happened. We're going to handle it. We're going to do something about it. We're not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, this happened, and so we're kind of at the mercy of things happening to us. You know what I mean? It's a poor poor mentality to be in and stay in. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, what I wanted, the takeaway I want for people in this topic particularly is that accountability. Look for ways to do it. And remember that things do not happen to you. Things happen because of you. All right. So just remember that. All right. Real quick here, I am going to talk about this, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I don't care because I love this topic. And it's follow-up. It's communication. I think they go one. They're hand in hand. They're one and the same. Follow-up, super important. I'm going to say this every time, and this is why I talk about it so much. I'm going to use an example. I just made a sale right before I came into this podcast. The reason why I made the sale and why it was so easy for me was because it was a referral job from their neighbor. We did a fantastic job for their neighbor, and they referred us to the next company, or excuse me, they referred us to the next door neighbor, and they reached out to us. And then when I went and talked to them, they were telling me about how the person we did a job for was talking good about us. You know, they were really impressed. They said they were really impressed more specifically with our communication and follow-up. And so that interested this prospect. Just the mere fact that their neighbor had a fantastic experience with us, and more specifically highlighted that how good we were at following up and communicating with them, is what sealed the deal for them. He said, yeah, you know, Gary over there was saying, you know, he was super impressed. He said, yeah, I called up, Ben, and he would call me immediately. I called the office, called the receptionist, and told Ben to get a hold of me. He would contact me immediately. I would email him, contact me immediately. And I always talk about speed. Speed is super, very important to have speed. Speed in answering phones, speed in responding to people, speed in completing a task. Speed is very, very important. I don't know what else to say. As we say in the sales and Grant Cardone licensee for speed is senior to sales. We focus on speed more than actually like trying to close somebody and making a sale, because speed shows how on top of our game we are. You know, if we're quick at responding to somebody, imagine how quick we're gonna be to following through and executing what that task is. Whether it's teaching or coaching to somebody, whether it's me running the home improvement business and contacting somebody about a project update, whether it's someone just calling into the office saying, hey, I was wondering if I can talk to Ben. You know, I seen his post on Instagram. I want to talk to him specifically. And then, you know, within 10 minutes or immediately, I'm calling them right back. That is super impactful, and it says a lot about you as a person, and more importantly, that is what is most important, is what it says about this, what the speed says about an individual, not necessarily a company. People do business with people more than they do it with a company. And so this can be applied in anything. Again, you can use that with the dating example as well. Do you think that speed is super important to getting back to somebody? I would argue yes. Now, don't overthink this. There was a time where I thought, and probably you may think, that no, I don't want to seem desperate. I used to think this with my business. Like, oh, well, I don't want to contact them immediately. I don't want to seem desperate. I don't want to, yeah, that was really the main thing. I just don't want to come off as desperate, like we need them. It's completely a false way of thinking. All right. You need to display how on top of your game you are. It doesn't come across as desperate. It comes across as being completely professional and quick, and it shows how fast you can execute on something. So follow up, I just wanted to share that with you. The sale that I just made right before I came to do this podcast, literally one of my neighbors just a few blocks up the road, was generated and closed because of the simple fact that I was fast and consistent and frequent with following up and communicating with their neighbor who referred them. So it works. I do it in life. I do it with my friends. I do it in family. Unless I'm super busy, you might not hear from me immediately, but I usually try to get a hold of people like really fast. Regardless, I will get back to you though. It used to surprise me, but now that I've done a little research and now that I pay attention to it as a business owner, when I go to buy something, it doesn't shock me now how many businesses don't focus on follow-up. Don't focus on how important and valuable the communication it needs to be. Before a sale, after the sale, all the way through. It's crazy how some of these businesses are running. And if you've done any purchases, which you have, you know what I mean. Trying to get some customer support, trying to get some updates, especially on stuff you bought that's being shipped or delivered. It's just terrible out there, which is why I'm part of the Grant Cardone licensing program, because we primarily help businesses, and follow-up and communication is one of the things that they're lacking. And if they just simply work on that one thing, or two things, let's say, follow-up and communication, that's going to massively increase their revenue just right there. So, yeah, super important. Let's see here. Let's get on down here to, how am I doing on time? Okay. Creating a pipeline. Let's talk about that. What is a pipeline? I know it's kind of more like a business term, but creating a pipeline means making sure you always have something constantly flowing and coming right after whatever the first thing is. So it keeps a steady flow, consistency going. Very important for business, especially when you're talking about scaling and growing. You need a pipeline. You need to promote the hell out of yourself so that you can generate constant streams of leads coming in at all different angles, get them logged in, capture their info, put them in a CRM, make sure that you're getting back to these people. But it needs to start with a pipeline. So you need to have, you're spending all the money on advertising. If you're a business and you're advertising, you're spending all that money on advertising, but you're not capturing all these people. So get a system put in place where you can actually capture these people and put them in that pipeline. It's a way to have cash flow. So let's talk about a personal application for creating a pipeline. I think it's important to just have a pipeline of activities in one's daily routine of life. Having blank space on your calendar is bad. It's just bad. If you got too much time, you don't know what to do, you're doing too much of the same thing, you have way too much time on your hand. And chances are you're probably not improving on some of the stuff that you should improve on. More importantly, probably something that's going to get you closer to financial freedom and kind of teach you financial literacy, which is something that everybody is lacking. I'm not kidding. I'm still working on getting financial literacy. But thank God I got the mentorship that I got, even at my later age. But yeah, it's something that people completely are lacking, and businesses lack as well. So super important. Gotta have cash flow. You gotta have activity flow too. You know what I mean? Like let's just assume cash isn't important to you, which I know I got a couple people that think that, like, oh well, money isn't everything. They're trying to make sense of why they're not looking to make more money. And they'll say, irrelevant things like that just don't make sense and they're more harmful than good. But got to create that pipeline. Got to get cash flow. Let's see here. And you got to let everybody know what you're doing. You got to put yourself out there. If you're not on social media, I would encourage you to start doing that. I know some people also think that's a waste of time. Or, I know personal people who are like in their 70s and just now getting into social media, doing Instagram posts, the Facebook posts, and it's like, holy crap, good for you, man. Like, I'm pretty impressed. They're learning the functionality of all these filters and settings and all these things, how to podcast, a lot of people, they avoid that, especially when they don't know it. Anytime people don't understand something, they they don't engage in it. But if you have a purpose, using a platform like social media is just so beneficial. It's going to help you grow tremendously. It's going to give you that edge. It's going to give you that advantage. And then when you turn the heat up with frequency, it's just going to make you stand out big time. And that's half the reason why we're pretty successful in like our home improvement business, and most certainly why Grant Cardone is so successful. The guy's a beast with social media presence. And so, whether it's his businesses, one of his 6 businesses, whether it's his home life, his family life, him just flying around, him just walking down the street talking, just showing people that you're a regular person. It makes it, you establish that network with that connection with people, right? Just being real and putting yourself out there and what your intentions are is a good way to get people's attention. Most people have good intentions, so most people. All right, let's see here. Before I get into, a couple things I just want to go through before I start going into the Drew Brees review. You got to be 100% sold on your purpose, right? Figure out what your purpose is, whether it's business related, whether it's, just something you want to do for yourself, not business related. Whatever it is, it has to be, you have to be committed to it, and you have to be 100% sold on it to have that conviction, and so that can lead to your confidence level being risen. All right, so that's super important. Remember that. Whatever you want to get involved in, you got to be 100% sold on it. Do big things. Explore your potential. Do things that seem impossible. Usually, another way to say that is do things that make you feel uncomfortable. Usually, if things are impossible, you're going to be uncomfortable about doing it because you're like, this is just not going to, there's no payoff. You can't see the payoff. You want that instant gratification. You have a hard time delaying gratification. You justify that and you make sense of that because by saying it's impossible, when there's been plenty of things out there that have been impossible that people have done. And I'm going to talk about that in the viral viewpoint and use an example about that too. Do big things, explore your potential. You have a ton of potential. We all do. So much is being left on the table. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. We all leave so much on the table. And if you just understand that, you can reclaim that and do something with it. And that's powerful, just knowing that. Real quick here. For anybody who's started a business, I'll give you a little bit of business advice coming straight from Brandon Dawson, who's, if you don't know who he is, super talented guy, super successful guy. Sold his, started a business with I think 150K. And it ended up selling it for $151 million. The business was called Audigy, and now he's a business partner with Grant Cardone as well. So super solid individual. He teaches people how to scale their business and really just take their business to the next level. So a couple of things here. The reason why I'm talking about this is for the people who have thought maybe they want to start a business. Whether it's soon or they're thinking like, hey, I'd like to do this. I would like to start this type of business in 5 years, or I'd like to do this. You got to understand a couple things. And so I can go into this quite a bit, but I thought I'd just tap on a couple of these points here. First of all, starting a business is not hard. It is not hard. A lot of people might think starting a business is hard. It's not. Now, scaling a business, having a business that has profit, that you're actually hitting a profit margin, that you're actually making money, that's tough. That's the tough part about it. And that requires work, and that requires being 100% sold on your purpose. That requires follow-up. That requires commitment. That requires accountability. All the things that requires you investing in yourself. All the things I just talked about go hand in hand with scaling a business. You can start it, but it takes more than that to run it. It takes more than that to scale it. It takes more than that to build a team. And so it's very important to know that that it takes that much work, because if you don't know, you're not gonna start. You're not gonna put in that work. But a couple of valuable statistics to know when you are starting a business is that 68% of companies have no employees. All right, there's 68% of businesses out there that are operating with just one person, and I used to do that for about a year and a half with my company. Very bad spot to be in. 64% of companies also break even or lose money. I was also that company in the first year and a half. I would break even and I would lose money. I've done jobs where I've paid, where I did so bad in it and misbid it, and it took longer than I thought, and I didn't charge enough, where I worked on a job for a month, and then come to find out I ended up spending money on that project. How terrible of a feeling do you think that was? To sit there and misbid something. It should have been thousands of dollars more. And work physically on a job with sweat and hard work and break my body on it, to find out that I lost money and ended up spending money. Spending money, whether it's paying employees to help finish the job or whatever. It's a terrible position to be in, and that's one of the hardest lessons to learn as a business owner. It really is. So remember those two statistics. There's millions of businesses, small companies out there that are operating with less than, I think it was 2/3, I want to say 2/3 of small businesses have less than 15 employees. And so I still have less than 15 employees, but eventually I will get there. Got 7, had 10 a couple weeks ago. So still trying to climb there, still trying to build that culture and build get the right people that want to actually build this business with me. So some valuable statistics to know before going into a business. But yeah, just remember, starting a business is super easy. Scaling it is even harder, and it's going to require massive amounts of action, consistent, frequent action. All right, promote yourself. You're gonna have to get used to showing your face, doing videos. That's what it takes these days. It really does. All right, let me get into. Let's see here. That's a bummer. I don't know how I'm gonna look at the Restream chat as well. So let's see if there's a way for me to picture these notes, because I got my notes here for the 10X Growth Conference. There we go. Let's see. Should have looked into this earlier. And I take full accountability for that. See how that worked? That was empowering. All right, let's see here. I seen. Oops. Bear with me. I'm going to try something here really quick. Oops. Or voice note, right with pen. Nope, that's not what I'm going to do. Huh. Okay. Well, can't seem to figure it out. That's okay. Let's just keep that up there and go with the flow. All right, so for those of you who don't know, back in March, I went to the 10X Growth Conference. It was put on by Grant Cardone. It's the biggest business conference in the world. And I was there. And there's a lot of fantastic people that were there, a lot of millionaires, billionaires, successful people. on every level you can think of. People that were there were looking to win and be better and just get to the next level. Look for that next thing. I gotta get a drink here before I get too much dry throat. All right. Thank you for your patience. So, yep, we talked about, there's a lot of individuals there. There was Kevin O'Leary, Glenn Stearns, Mike Rowe, Pitbull, Elena Cardone, Swan Sit, Pete Vargas, Tyrese Gibson, Brandon Dawson, Tommy Hilfiger. God, there was a lot of people. Jesse Itzler, Glenn Sanford, Don Peebles, Alex Rodriguez, and now the last person, it would be Drew Brees. So I've been slowly chipping away at my experience in reviewing these individuals that spoke. So Drew Brees, let's talk about him really quick. In case you don't know who he is, he's an athlete. He's a football player, quarterback, I believe. I honestly, I have heard Drew Brees, but I never really, I haven't been following football enough to understand who he is, where he came from, his history. So I got to hear him speak and kind of hear it from him himself. And he got a great story, very impressive individual, super motivational, very impactful guy. And I was happy to hear his speech with Grant Cardone. So some of the things he said here, let's just work down the list. Well, first of all, if I remember right, his story was he didn't even want to be a football player. He was a baseball player. He grew up playing baseball, and baseball was his passion. Somewhere along the lines of him transitioning from high school to college, he realized he was good at football, and there was no, I can't remember exactly what happened now. It's been a few months since I heard him say it, but there was something that happened to him that set him back into baseball. And so he started playing football, and it just made more sense for him to pursue the football avenue, which good thing he did, because he ended up being very successful in football, apparently. But he strikes me as a guy who would just be successful at any sport that he puts his effort into. But that football just happened to be his thing, and so good on that guy. What he said was, if you focus on a good process, the results will take care of itself. So that's pretty good advice. Focus on something that's predictable. Figure out what works first. Figure out a process that works and repeat that process. Rinse and repeat. That's kind of what he's talking about doing. Make something a little bit predictable for yourself, because, and that doesn't mean avoid things that are uncomfortable or things that happen out of the norm. That just means we already have things like that happen in our life. So the more you can make it more predictable, the better off you're going to be. Plus, when something works, you got to just keep working that out, right? And growing it. That just makes sense. That's just good business sense. It's just good sense in life in general. So yeah, focus on a great process. The results will take care of itself. So if you have found something that works, keep doing it. It's only going to get better. And if it doesn't, if it's one of those things that has a timeline and just kind of fades out and has its end date, look for that next thing. Look for that next process, get that next process worked out, and repeat that as well. The most important thing is find something that works so that you can repeat it. So he was saying, focus on being a Hall of Fame person and winning the game of life. So apparently, I'm pretty sure he got inducted to the Hall of Fame. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that. And his advice on that to everybody in the room was focus on being a Hall of Fame person and winning the game of life. That's pretty cool. It's a cool way to, a cool perspective to put, it's a cool sports perspective to put on just life in general. So pretty cool. So take responsibility to be in a position of influence and be a leader. Take the role seriously. This takes work, and this probably takes investing time and money into yourself. So, and then you can, once you have invested in yourself, it's going to give you that confidence, and it's going to make you want to take responsibility, because if you have built that accountability muscle, it's funny when you look for ways, or when you commit to being accountable for everything, you then start looking for things that you can be accountable for, even if it seems like it totally was not your fault or completely out of your hands. So very great advice to take responsibility, to be in the position of influence and be a leader. Take the role seriously. And I would also dovetail that and say, be aware of who you might be a leader to. Even if you haven't set out to be a leader or a role model to somebody, pay attention. There's always someone watching you. You are a role model to somebody. Almost everybody is. They are a role model to somebody. There's somebody watching, and could be kids. You know what I mean? So be very aware of that, and be a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? Like Drew Brees is saying, be a Hall of Fame person in the game of life. Visualization is very key to preparation. And I agree. This is why Grant Cardone has everybody working for him, including myself as a licensee, writing down our goals every day, every night. That's part of visualizing. Writing things down is part of visualizing. That's why I said earlier, that was something I was taught by Jared Glant, was, the 60,000, or excuse me, people retain and remember things 60,000 times more than when they write it down than they do just hearing it. So that's part of visualization too. It just does something for the brain. When you can visualize something, you can remember something a little bit more. And so if you can remember something, you can remember what your purpose was or why you're doing something in the first place. You're going to be more prepared as well also. You're going to get more prepared. You're just going to force yourself to be more prepared, because you're going to remember what the purpose was to begin with, or whatever you wanted to visualize that you wrote down or that you visualized mentally is going to remind you, and it's going to prepare you. So good advice. The teams that win the most are with the ones you care about the most. The teams that win the most are with the ones you care about the most. All right. Very good. And I think that's great advice for companies that have a team. This can be, you can apply this to a family. Let's just say a family is a team. So let's just say you're a family that's, focused on being exceptionally good individuals, or, just being a good person, or helping people, or something of that nature. Those are obviously people that you care about, so that's why that would be one example. But yeah, the teams that win the most are the ones you care about the most. So it makes sense. Worry about what you can control. I think that's great, and I would also dovetail the accountability on the end of that. So worry about what you can control, and also take accountability for the things you can't control. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds freaking out of this world. And, you're like, why would you take accountability for something you can't control? Because it's a growth thing. Trust me. If you can just if you look hard enough, there is a way to take accountability for almost everything that happens to you, to somebody else that you're working with, or a scenario that you're a part of. It just does something for you. Believe me, I've done this. I've practiced it. I've literally taken accountability for something that would seem to most people as not me being responsible for it. And it's the feeling is just absolutely good. I can't explain it. There's a huge personal growth, a level of personal growth that comes with that. So trust me when I say that. But yeah, worrying about what you can control is good advice too. You can't stress about the things you can't control. Things that you can't control are going to happen. So you don't need to worry yourself about it. Just be aware that it's going to happen. When it does happen, take accountability for it, and then figure out how you're going to solve the problem. All right? It's really about problem solving. How quickly can you get that can-do attitude formed, and when can you, get yourself to realize, how can you get yourself to take accountability really quick? All right. He also said here, you have to find growth in every opportunity. So that means having a growth mindset. Obviously, pretty self-explanatory for me and what I talk a lot about on this podcast and in my video feeds and all my posts for YouTube and Instagram. You got to look for growth in every opportunity. And again, I can use that accountability as an example. Having an accountability is part of growing, is looking for that's a great way to actually explain what I said when I was talking about how taking accountability for something you have no control over does something for you. I can't explain it. That's a great way to explain it. It's an example of you looking for a way to grow in an opportunity that seems like you can't grow in. But it's on the contrary. It's one of the best opportunities to grow in as a person. And you got to have that growth mindset to even get on that level. You got to be ready to learn. No matter what age you are, you can't have a know-it-all attitude. You got to have a can-do attitude. You got to have a winning attitude. You got to have the attitude of learning, being open to accepting things, being open to being wrong about what you previously were taught about things. You just gotta have that growth mindset, and that's a good starting point. Having the growth mindset is the starting point for massive changes in your life. If you're looking to change your life in any area, in anything, whether it's your living situation, whether it's the job that you work in, whether it's the relationship you're in, you gotta start with the mindset, right? What are you telling yourself? What kind of internal dialogue are you having with yourself? That's super important. All right. He also said that the most defining moments are a failure. Soon after that is triumph. So, pretty straightforward stuff. I tend to agree. David Goggins talks a lot about this. Like, there's so many in the journey to triumph. There is a lot of failures. There could be a lot of failures. The bigger the goal, the more failures you might have. I'm pretty certain of that. But that distance, I've talked about this. The act of making that decision, getting to the other line, and that in between space. Right? A lot of failures, a lot of obstacles, a lot of roadblocks, a lot of walls you're hitting. That is the moment of truth, and that is what he's talking about. Those defining moments are in between this space. Going from here to here is the defining moments. But when you reach this spot on the other side, it's a beautiful feeling. It's an unspeakable feeling that no one can really understand unless they did it themselves. You can't even put it into words so somebody can understand it. It's that good of a feeling, if you guys know what I mean. So yeah. Let's see here. So that was it. That was the last thing, last notes I took on Drew Brees. Like I said, he talked a lot. Very exceptional individual. He had a lot to talk about, and so got a lot of respect for the guy, and he's a business guy. It's really cool to see a lot of these athletes that start out in sports and then figure out how to transition into the business life. Or even musicians, or I like seeing people go from one industry to the next. All right. getting hot up in here. In case you guys didn't know, this so I do the podcast in my office, which is on the 3rd floor of a house. I got one portable air conditioner, all right? And I usually put that in my daughter's room because I'd rather have her staying cool than, you know, I would suffer before I make my daughter suffer. That's just cruel. And so I want to make sure she's doing okay. Thought about getting another air conditioner. We don't get that much heat here in Washington. This year has been weird, kind of abnormal. We had 112 degree, 113 degree weather a day like that, which was, you know, record breaking temperatures. It only lasted for one day, but the day before was like 100 and something, which is also very abnormal for Washington. So I have a hard time buying another portable air conditioner when I know I'm just going to use it for about a month, and then I'm going to have to find a spot to put it. So, but the reason why I'm saying that is because the way I got it set up, you might notice my door is closed, but usually before I started the podcast, I turned on the air conditioner because my daughter's room is right across the way there. I would turn on the air conditioner, put a commercial fan that I got in front of the air conditioner so that it captures the air and blows it right into here. But it's super loud. The fan I'm using to blow it is a commercial fan, so it's extremely loud. And so if I had that door open with it blowing in here, the mic would pick it up and it would sound terrible. So, so long story short, the reason why I'm saying that is because it's getting hot in here, which is another reason why me and my daughter haven't really done the podcast a little bit, because I don't want her up here suffering in the heat too. Plus, I guess I'm wearing a blazer. That doesn't help. So, yeah, but yeah, getting hot. Let's put it that way. All right, so that was it. That wraps up the whole 10X Growth Conference and all the people that I talked about. So I guess I should probably say something about that whole experience right now that I'm completely done. Fantastic experience. Great place to be when you want to surround yourself around like-minded people and people who are on a similar mission and purpose or path of purpose that you are. So I had an exceptional time. Obviously, I had a good time just for the traveling aspect. I haven't been to Miami, so that was really cool to travel to Miami, be a part of that environment, be a part of that community. I'm glad I went because that's where I was introduced to the Cardone licensee program. Bought into it, committed to it. I had already been kind of studying on Cardone U for a little bit prior to that, so I was familiar with Grant's content, as well as, I've read all his books. Well, not all of them. There's a couple I haven't read, but the main ones, were I read them prior to even going there. So I was very familiar with Grant. I started off with the 10X rule: sell or be sold, be obsessed or be average, and the Closer's Guide. So those 4 books were highly impactful to me, and those are one of the 4 main books that changed my life. Let's put it that way. That, and then Cardone University. Cardone University is basically an online training course that you do every day. You get access to it 24/7. You get access to everything you could possibly think of. This is one of the things I sell in the licensee program as well. Cardone U is what a lot of businesses who have sales reps use for their team, because it establishes an accountability, a measurable accountability system for them to make sure that your guys are training, they're learning, and they're implementing the things that they actually have learned. It's all reported to you. You get a report generated to you, seeing how much people have done, what they've done. They get tested every time and this is stuff I've all done. They get tested at the end of these videos. They're very digestible, 3 to 5 minute videos. So much information just packed into this tight little segment. Great stuff, by the way. So I'm glad I went. I'm glad I exposed and dived myself a little deeper into the 10X movement and into the Cardone enterprises. So very glad I did that. Let's put it that way. Let's talk a little bit. Let's get into the review, viral viewpoint. There we go. I'm drawing a blank on my own segments. Long day. It's been a long day. I've been doing a lot of appointments, and I kind of went long. I've tried to wrap up my appointments so I'm not cutting it real close to the podcast. Give me a little bit of breathing time to eat, time to relax a little bit, but seems like that hasn't happened. It's still, everything goes longer than expected, and so it makes me kind of cut it close and find myself trying to prepare last minute and getting these mic stands set up and all these things, all the posts there, and getting set up completely dialed in, so which is a bit of a task. So let's talk about the viral viewpoint here. Couple things. Being around, and this is kind of exactly what I meant by surrounding myself with like-minded people, like I did at the 10X Growth Conference. Being around people who don't want to change is damaging. All right. If you're around somebody who thinks, this is my coined term, that if you think self-improvement is a waste of time, then you are wasting time. All right. And same thing that kind of dovetails into this. Being around people who don't want to change is damaging. So if you're going to be around somebody who is wasting time and is damaging and always kind of bringing, negativity to the atmosphere, with comments and jabs and things like that, like, hey, why are you doing this? I don't see the value in that. It's probably a scam. You don't even know this person. Like, you know what that sounds like. All right. You know exactly what all that negativity sounds like. So it's bad to be around that. And I've kind of recently been a little bit around an individual who was like that, and I kind of had to tell that person immediately, like, hey, I don't deal with negativity, or at least I don't like to put myself in a negative environment like that, and get the negativity incepted into my environment like that. I was like, so we need to figure this out now. If you want to have a relationship with me, not talking about like a partner relationship, just any relationship, business relationship, communication is super key. And having a great attitude, or at least someone that's trying to work on having a great attitude, is key. Those two things combined is a great foundation for having a solid relationship with somebody. Whether it's a child, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a business partner, you name it. All right. So communication and having positivity, having a positive energy, positive mindset, positive reinforcement. All right. Smiling when you fail, smiling when there's adversity. All those things are super important. All right, so let's talk about this, because this is interesting to me. Everyone's version of a great life is different, and I've had people ask me, money isn't everything. Well, I'm not really, money's great. Money isn't everything, and yes, you're right. Absolutely, money is not everything. But it's very important for financial freedom. Being able to generate money, a lot of money, not just for you, not just for the time you're alive. You got to think of, you can't be selfish. You got to think about your kids. You got to think about your wife. What kind of cash flow can you create for them so that they can keep it going and have something to grow as well? Those are super important. Everybody has a different vision. Their example of a great life might mean, spending a lot more time with the family. And I've had that talk with people too. They think, I should be spending more time with my daughter. Could be, I'm wasting all those years. Your daughter's only 8 for 1 year. They're only kid one time. And I get it. Look, this is, the reason I'm in this position, I'm working a lot and sacrificing a lot of family time, is because I didn't make those decisions to improve my life at a younger age. I'm doing it now in a later age. And so all the success that I am getting now at a later age is delayed. It's delayed gratification, and it wasn't intentional. It's just something that I didn't work at early enough, So, but I am aware of how important family time is, and what I don't really get hung up on the cliche great life, or being satisfied, or I've heard people say, well, if money isn't everything, but and also if I don't have anybody to spend it with, or anybody to spend time with my money, then all that was a waste of time. All these things are true, right? It's not one or the other. It's so just finding a balance, understanding those things. Figure out, I guess what I'm really trying to say is figure out what your version of a great life is, and how much family time is that? How much play time is that? How much work time is that? What's your version of a great life, and what are you doing to take those steps to have a great life? Like what can you start doing today, which you can do something today to get to this, your example of a great life? Good question to ask yourself. Most people have a hard time sacrificing and justify with things that won't benefit their financial freedom. And using that as an example, they're like, oh, well, family time is more important to me than trying to build cash flow or trying to worry about money. And family time is more important to me too, but guess what's going to get you more family time? More cash flow. And if that involves you sacrificing some years right now so that you can pay, if that involves you paying the price right now so that you can pay any price in the future, then do it. That's what people need to realize. Like, pay now, pay the time now, pay the money now. Do what it takes now so that you can enjoy the later years. The sooner you invest in it now, the sooner you get going, the sooner you can get to that great life that you have imagined for yourself. And you got to start somewhere. So, want to talk a little bit about, I guess talk about Brandon Dawson a little bit. I think I already talked about him a little bit. Exceptional individual, super successful, very cool, very passionate guy. He cares about people, cares about businesses. He has this saying, and it's thought-provoking. And his saying is, what you think is what you do is what you create will be your legacy. So, some heavy stuff to think about. So think about your internal dialogue. What do you think about? Because it is right. He's completely right. What you think is how you're going to actually execute things and how you live your life. So what is something that you think that plays a role in your actions? And then think about that being the thing you create, right? The role, the thing that you think about, whatever it is that you think, you end up doing, and then you end up acting on it by creating something, whether it's an environment, whether it's something tangible, whether it's something materialistic, you name it. You have created something now. And what you have created is going to be your legacy, especially the longer you do it. People change. If you created something bad, then you might want to think about changing that or looking for ways to change that. But super super impactful statement, you know. So yeah, think about what you want to invest in, because what you invest in is also ultimately going to be what your legacy is going to be as well. Let's talk a little bit about, let's use this as an example. So if you haven't been watching the news, which I don't watch the news, but the reason I found this out was because I go onto Google Trends every now and then. I use that for promotional purposes, marketing strategies, and things like that. Got to know what's trending, right? And one of the stories I seen on there was Richard Branson and how he took, his, it's like I guess you would call it a spacecraft. It's an aircraft of some sort that kind of went to the perimeter of space, right out there on the edge of the atmosphere, right before it turns into actual, technical space. So, and the whole purpose of that is because he's on a mission to commercialize space travel. Super high target, right? When you talk about a person trying to pick a really impossible goal, we talked about this earlier. Do things that seem impossible. How many people do you think, especially going back in time, right? If you were like in the 1940s and someone, Richard Branson is there as a kid, and he's like, talking to his parents or anybody or school, his friends, like, yeah, I think when I grow up, I want to focus on taking an aircraft into space, commercializing space travel. People would think he's out of his mind because it's impossible. It seems impossible. I mean, to them, especially at that time, they just can't see it. And if you can't visualize it, it is impossible. It's impossible for you to manifest it if you can't even visualize it. But that individual, you want to talk about purpose? I would say Richard Branson has a very high target purpose. Trying to commercialize space travel it's a big deal. You know what I mean? He's not the only one. You've heard Elon Musk and now Jeff Bezos. They might not be the only ones either, but those three have really been working hard to commercialize space travel. That's big think. That's like massive goals right there. Trying to do the impossible. But can you imagine what kind of feeling they're getting just as they did, as they accomplished and just completed that mission where they just went to the edge? I mean, it's that much closer to getting to their goal, and that's a massive goal. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. We're starting to explore. I mean, obviously we've already explored space quite a bit, but to commercialize space travel, to develop something to where we can, allow the everyday guy to potentially buy something to travel so that they can experience the space where, we thought that was only going to be something astronauts would be able to experience. That's a super massive goal. And I think it's really, really cool. I mean, that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of grinding. That takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of confidence. It just takes a lot. And so I got massive respect for Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos. Those guys have, a higher purpose. They put their money where their mouth is. They put a lot of time. They've invested in it. And so I don't doubt that they're going to do well. They're obviously thinking about their legacy, right? To sit there and work on something that in depth and that extensive and that has something that has I would say, room for error. It's one of those errors too that if, something bad happens, it's usually really, really bad. So yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to think about. It's crazy, but it's not crazy. to think about us commercializing space travel. Obviously, because I grew up in a time where, we've had astronauts already. So it's like, oh yeah, it's just a matter of time to me. But still, I can guarantee you there's still people out there that had doubt. But they're setting the bar. They're setting the bar like super high is kind of what I'm getting at. So yeah, massively impactful individuals. You want to talk about role models too? Those guys are, those are like top of the line role models right there for a lot of people. And a lot of them started at nothing too. That's what people got to realize. I don't think, I didn't really do background check on Richard Branson, but I know for sure Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they've been grinding for years to get their businesses off the ground. And so they've definitely 10x their efforts and 10x their results, and all that stuff pays off, has paid off for them, has paid off for their business, has paid off for their life. And that was an investment that was well thought out. Let's put it that way. All right, so that's actually the last thing I wanted to talk about. Coming up short on content. This is the first time I've ever came up short on content. Usually I can never get to all of it by the end of 9 o'clock. Usually I have something that was left over. And I probably do. Something that I missed that I could go back and look at. But I actually don't mind cutting it a little bit short just because I got about 4 different sales orders that I got to process, and gonna have to put my customers first right now because tomorrow's gonna be, tomorrow I'm making the time to spend with family, right? I'm gonna go out with my daughter's mom. We're gonna go to the park. So yeah, that's an example of me carving out time, sacrifices doesn't have to be for the business. In fact, sacrificing some of the business to spend with my family too. So just spreading out and being balanced with the things that are important with me is kind of what I'm a little bit going to be focused on more. And I do understand that it's important to spend time with your children before they grow up. And so it's one of those things, like I said, I started becoming more successful in my later years. And so my daughter's still very young. And so the sacrifices are definitely, I got to be really methodically, they got to be methodically placed. There we go. But I'll get it figured out. I'll let you know when the perfect balance comes to my life and let you know how that works out. Build a template, give you a playbook for it if you ever run into that scenario. But what I wanted to do, let's throw the plugs out there. So once again, you can find live streams on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, just like this live stream right here. And you'll see posted content on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Anchor FM, and also on those previous platforms that I just mentioned. And again, if you have any questions or looking into or have any questions about the personal coaching or the business coaching business that I have, benjaminjohn.net is the website. Give it a look. Let me know your thoughts. Reach out to me. Submit your info, and I would love to chat with you and answer any questions and give you any information that you need. So yeah, once again, for the virus, thanks for being here. You can find I already did that. The quick question is going to be regarding what Brandon Dawson's statement is. Like I said, if you forgot already, it's what you think is what you do. What you do is what you create. What you create becomes your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be? That's my quick question for the day. Think about your life. Think about your life when you're 60, when you're 70. Think about your life when you pass away. What do you want people to say about you when you're gone? What do you want to leave behind as memories for your family? And what do you want your legacy to be? All right. Answer that question. I thought I had another question there, but I can't read my own handwriting apparently. So I usually have good handwriting too, so I must have been quick with that. Can't really see what's going on here. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna leave you guys with that. I'm gonna cut this podcast a little bit early here, and I'm gonna make sure I'm a little bit prepped out more next time. I gotta test this audio, see how well this new stand's working out, and see if this is something I want to stick with. So anyways, hopefully you guys had a good time. Hopefully this was impactful, and I kind of talked about some stuff that might provoke some thoughts or pique some interest. So yeah, go ahead. Don't forget to follow me, like me, subscribe, share. All that stuff helps me, and I really appreciate it, and helps me kind of build this platform out and get my message out there and my intentions out there. All right. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will catch you guys next Saturday at 7 p.m. Don't know if I'll have a guest on that one, but I'm gonna see if I can set up a guest for the next podcast, because we needed another guest on here. I got a lot of people lined up and I haven't reached out to them yet, so about to get on that groove again. So yeah, take care, have a fantastic rest of your evening, and we'll see you next week. Bye guys.